a very good evening to you tonight from MetroFanTV, coming to you live from somewhere in the beautiful state of New Jersey with the weekly rundown once again. Lenz and Fernando coming to you live in the midst of what could only be described as yet another contentious week here in the world of the New York, New Jersey Metro the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars, currently known as the New York Red Bulls. I guess so without further ado, bumper week behind us and another bumper week ahead. 2 games coming up after the last 2 games in the window. And I guess this story begins in BC Place in Vancouver, British Columbia. I think we kind of anticipated last week that this would be one of the toughest parts of the schedule to manage. And, you know, I guess we'll begin with what transpired on Saturday night on the west coast of Canada. Vancouver away hasn't traditionally been the most forgiving, I would say, of fixtures, I think, for us. Generally, BC Place being a bit of a house of horrors for this team in recent years. But they kind of set out to bust that jinx a little bit, didn't they? I thought it was a very good early performance from the team in Vancouver. You know, that early goal from Danny Royer really setting the tone for the rest of the first half. And, you know, once again, you know, it's great to see the Danny Royer redemption tour, like, making yet another stop, this time in Vancouver. And it was an absolute textbook goal. I think it touched upon a lot of the facets of what we talked about with regards to what Chris Armas kind of wanting this team to do, of all this work out there in the right-hand channel, allowing Danny to kind of tuck into the center of the box and tap it in, basically, with really well-worked play from Tyler, Bradley, and Danny right at the end, right? I think, once again, a lot of the components that we touched upon last week showing itself again with yet another textbook goal.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, look, it's I guess once you've spotted those differences, it just becomes even more obvious as you watch the games. I think the team played pretty well against Vancouver. I mean, especially considering it's a trip 3,000 miles across. It's the longest away trip of the season. Playing on turf, and that's not a high level turf like it is in Portland, for example. So yeah, they went there. They didn't play scared. They went in there. They attacked hard. They pressed aggressive. You know, they slowed things down at times, I think. Maybe to manage, you know, some of the stress of having to play on the turf. But yeah, I think the first half they came out strong. They made it a very, very big point, I think, to show that they are going to continue to play the way they want to play. That despite a lot of talk of some people saying that, you know, the Rebels play reactively, that they only play the way other teams want them to play. I think they came out there saying, no, we're going to go into your house and we're going to play the way we want to play. And how we want to play is we're going to press. And we're going to press because we know you're home and you're going to want to play. We know you're going to want to, you know, pass the ball around and have possession and whatever. And that just leaves a big opportunity to press hard and play the way we want to play. So yeah, I think they came out very, very positive in the first half.
Yeah, certainly. I think when we talk about pressing being at the center of this team's success, I mean, you have to kind of give tip of the hat to Tyler Adams for like absolutely accomplished performance in the center of the field. I think first of all, the assist on the goal, that beautiful lofted ball in the space for Bradley Wright Phillips. It was a hockey assist, but it's those kind of plays, I think, that really showed off his all-rounded play. I think, you know, I think he's more than just that midfield destroyer. You know, what kind of gets overlooked because of his athleticism and his ability to just cover so much ground, is the fact that, you know, he can play these really nice lofted balls, like maybe 20 or 30 yards out the back to start.
And we've seen glimpses of that even last year. That one really, really good assist he had to Bradley, like
which was
that
also
was
against Vancouver, actually.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Shit, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, you saw that. You got a quick, and he didn't really do that for the rest of the year last year. Something changed in the last couple of months. I'd have to really look at games to see if it's also been since Armas has taken over, or maybe it's just slowly and kind of gradually became more obvious, but he's definitely doing a lot more of these this year than he has in the past. And I think just overall, there's something about his demeanor in the last couple of months where he just looks so much more comfortable. He looks like he's having fun. He's almost, I want to say arrogance. He's gained confidence that this is my position. I'm the defensive mid. These are my roles, and I'm going to just fucking kill it in those roles. He just looks so much freer and more positive. I mean, he's looked so good in the majority of his games, and like you said, his passing has gotten better. It's more than just this guy that just runs around and kind of fucks things up for against other teams on the press. He's doing so much more, and that's helped us directly in the transition and the attack.
Yeah, I think earlier in the year you'd kind of see like Tyler forcing a turnover and then immediately trying to knock it off to maybe Sean Davis or Florian Velo to try the attack starter. But nowadays it seems to me that Tyler is kind of a bit more involved in starting the transition kind of himself, right? Once he forces a turnover in midfield, like he's immediately playing a pass forward or trying to find out ways to try and knock a ball to someone a bit more further advanced. I think that part of his game has really come around recently, and it's just made him an even bigger all-around threat.
Yeah.
Because not only is he that huge midfield destroyer who can put in a great 90-minute shift against one of the most dangerous dribblers in MLS, in Alphonso Davies, but he can also immediately start attacks as soon as he shuts him down. And I think that's just such an unbelievable achievement for a guy who is only just 19 years old.
Yeah, and look, we have to remember to always frame things around the context of how this team is supposed to play. And the way this team is really supposed to play is, you press in the midfield, you create situations for presses, you win, and you go to goal as quickly as you can, as efficiently as you can, meaning the less passes and the more direct you can be to goal, the better. Because that's kind of the whole point. Look at how Leipzig plays. Look at how Salzburg plays. They're definitely on a different level than us. But you can see, and even on our absolute best, our transition, when it's on fire, is second to none in this league. It's brutal. So when you have Adams, who before, like you said, would just be all over the place and create those good transitional moments, before he would look to pass to someone else real quick. He looked to kind of dish it off and kind of just give that responsibility to someone else. Now that he's able to take that responsibility more and take more command of starting that initial transition, the transition can actually happen faster now.
Yeah.
That's for 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds quicker now, or more time that they have to start pushing forward than kind of having to wait to see, okay, he just won the ball. What is he going to do? Who is he going to pass it to? And then we can kind of go forward. That also frees up Davis to kind of push up a little bit more and not have to kind of be that one to stop, receive the ball, look, and then advance the ball forward. Like, there's something as simple as that can be so big to how the team plays. And there's a certain player who's no longer at Leipzig who, if you looked at how he used to play with Leipzig, is very reminiscent of Tyler Adams, Naby Keita. So that was there's a reason why people made so many comparisons between the two over the years, and they're still fundamentally different players, I think. But there's also a lot of characteristics in terms of kind of how he plays and his role that you saw with him before he moved over to Liverpool.
Right. I think moving on to the half, a lot of the discussion, I think immediately after the Vancouver game particularly, was kind of centered on the fact that despite controlling most of the game, or even most of the first half, Vancouver kind of gave us 2 sucker punches, right? I think it was conceding off of set pieces is something we kind of have expected Vancouver to do, because we knew from their play style is that they'd play very defensively and react to how their opponents go. We're trying to hit them either on a counter or some kind of created set piece. And, it kind of showed itself here with a goal from Kendall Waston, I think, in just before halftime. And, there was also a lot of questions as to how this goal happened. Shep on the broadcast put it down to the zonal marking scheme that they tried to do. But, some other people also thought there was a bit of miscommunication between Tim Parker and Luis Robles. I personally thought that, I do, in hindsight, blame the scheme a bit more for the first goal.
Yeah.
Because I think you do see a lot of guys just kind of ball watching as the ball comes in, and nobody really picks up Waston making that late run right into the center. But, you know, I think the other thing for me is that, like, if you're the goalkeeper coming off your line, like Luis kind of tries to do here, if you aren't the first to the ball, you're dead.
Yeah.
That's basically kind of what it boils down to for me. I think I was a bit critical of Tim Parker on Twitter, like following that first goal, and, you know, I guess that's kind of my bad, Tim. The first goal wasn't quite really your fault, but you know, I thought, all things considered, like, it was, despite conceding towards the end of the first, you know, like, I still think that we altogether dealt with Vancouver's running game, like, pretty well, right?
Yeah.
I think their only main outlet for the whole half was Alphonso Davies, and he kind of ran into, like, the one-man brick wall, Tyler Adams in midfield. So I thought that was kind of a little interesting wrinkle as well, is that, like, it seemed to be that the instructions were for Tyler to be kind of man-marking him at all times, which was really negated, like, a lot of his effectiveness. So a lot of really interesting little tactical things going on here. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think you know, kind of going back to the zonal marking, I don't know why they would have done that. You know, we actually talked in the last rundown about them in the air. Although our focus was more on Kai Kamara, I figured he would have started, but we really didn't touch on Waston that much. But is really kind of just in general, regardless of who's on the field, they always have a big threat in the air.
yeah,
And you know, as good as Long is in the air and as good as Parker is in the air, they're kind of better. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that you would do a zonal marking when you have someone just so obviously good in the air and that's such a big threat. You would think you would want to at all times mark that person.
Yeah.
And because they didn't mark him, like you said, they were kind of just ball watching. Everyone's like, wait, well, who was supposed to be holding him? Well, no one, because no one was man marking him. Like, it just, I don't know. If I've been very high on Chris's game day management, and I still am, but that was the first big mistake I think he made. Well, one, deciding to do zonal marking for this game, but two, not making an adjustment to stop doing that. Like, you would think at some point, you know, in the half, he would have mentioned, okay, obviously we're getting beat, because that was the only one they scored on, but they had a couple other dangerous set pieces too in the air.
Yeah, it was like their fourth or fifth corner at the half at that point.
Yeah.
So I kind of would have figured that you would have kind of gained a better sense of what they're trying to accomplish after set pieces, right? And you can see that, you know, even though the balls into the box weren't really quite finding their men with the earlier corners, like, they were still being put in the position that ended up costing us, you know, right outside the 6-yard box, right in the center.
Yeah, and that's what for me, that's what was frustrating, is it wasn't like it was just something that just kind of happened out of nowhere. Every time they had a set piece, I was basically shitting on my pants because I knew there was a legitimate threat at a score, because they were still zonal marking, they weren't man marking. Waston was able to just walk right in there and get his head in the ball, and you know, he ended up getting a brace.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's that second goal particularly, actually, like, that is the one that I unfortunately can't really absolve Tim Parker on, because I mean that just got absolutely, like, abused, quite frankly, at the near post by that. Once again, you know, it's a late run from Waston, finds him right in his head, and he just beats Timmy to the ball because he's huge. And, you know, I mean, like, at that point, when you knew how good Waston was at finding the ball off those set pieces, I mean, like, you kind of had to put one man at him at all times. Yeah. And he still found ways to sneak around us, because I think we stuck to that zonal marking scheme, and it ended up costing us 2 points, really, if it weren't for that last-minute goal from Danny Royer that saved it. Off another great feed from Tyler Adams, by the way, in that set piece, like that really nice lofted delivery to the back. But on top of, you know, I mean, the two set piece goals, I think we kind of got in our own ways a little bit in this game, because I thought that we created enough clear-cut chances to get 3 points. You know, I think
that should have been a 3-4 goal game for us. Yeah, it really should have been.
It was that was that header from Wheel that Marinovic had to pull out, that unbelievable save to get the resulting
that weird
scramble.
Shit that happened right in front of goal. That like Wheel kind of just like laid there dead and basically blocked the ball.
Tim whiffed on from 3 inches out because he decided to try and step on the ball or something.
Yeah, that was.
And of course, I think Brad missed a pretty good one, unfortunately.
Yeah, he could have done better there.
Could have definitely. He looked a bit doing that 180 turn kind of slowed it down a little bit, gave Marinovic a chance to recover and shut the angle down. And for that, you kind of have to give Marinovic a lot of props for that, for what is really, really good.
I wonder if Brad thought that maybe he was further out than he was, because maybe he just felt he couldn't kind of just receive it, and still in the move towards getting closer to goal, kind of turn and then just give it a quick shot. Maybe he felt like he had to just basically stand there and just do a 180 and shoot it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately by doing that, there was just so much space for this guy to block it, and it was a much easier stop than it really should have been.
Yeah. It feels like 2 drop points in Vancouver to a degree, but I'm not really crazy upset about it. I mean, I'm a bit disappointed, obviously, because I think we had enough on the day to pull out a win. And, especially in hindsight of what transpired against City on Wednesday, which we'll be talking about right after the first break, those are 2 points that you're just kind of going to be sitting there and wondering that if we don't come away with a trophy at the end of the season, it's going to kind of make you think, I think, what if just took those chances better? And that's what it kind of boils down to for me. Could have easily had 3 points if we finished some of those chances. And, those are kind of things that you kind of have to learn from, unfortunately.
Yeah, and to the point of learning, look, for me, I've kind of split my mindset this year into two parts. One is the regular season, and 2, seeing things happening under the context of, okay, what does this moment potentially mean in the playoffs? And I feel like there's been a lot of times this year where we've kind of said, you know what, this is a game we lose last year, or the year before, or the year before. This is a game that we let slip away. And I don't feel like that happens as often this year. I feel like we really are winning games or coming back from a loss to at least get a point in games that we otherwise wouldn't. So for me, I look at it like this. Yes, this is potentially something that could end up costing us the Shield, and that sucks. But it's an away game. If this is not the first time where away this team has had to claw back and at least get some kind of result.
Right.
And if we're going to take that now and frame it around the idea of the playoffs, well, one of the problems this team has had is going away and getting a solid result. Theoretically, if this was a playoff game against a team in the East, we're coming out 2-2.
That's
with 2 away goals.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
I feel comfortable going home now in the second leg that we can handle business and we can get a positive result for us.
Yeah, yes. I mean, certainly in a vacuum, a point in Vancouver particularly, transcontinental away trip, I mean, that's valuable. The adage would go in MLS that, you win at home and you draw away and you're probably going to be a championship team.
Yeah.
In a vacuum, I would have taken this result. It's the context, that makes it a little bit sour. But I mean, I'm not really pulling any alarms yet because it's a point on the road. And
a comeback point on the road in the playoffs, you're gonna do cartwheels.
Yeah.
Really.
And that's great to have in MLS. And but we'll be talking more about away ties right after this break with the more spicy game against NYCFC. We'll be right back.
Duty, and the Whitecaps have to keep their marks. It's a decent-looking ball, back post, and what a goal! It's Royer's second of the game, volleyed off the crossbar and down, and 10 men New York have drawn level 2-2.
And we're back on MetroFanTV to run down the second of the 2 away games that this team played in the last week, and this is probably the one that's going to be a lot fresher and perhaps a lot more stinging in people's minds right now. NYCFC away Wednesday night. And, when it comes to bizarre games this season, I think people will kind of point to the Orlando away game as being bizarre, but this kind of has to be up there as well. You know, I think looking at the game, you know, fairly even start. I certainly thought that, you know, all things considered, while both teams had 11 men, it was a very evenly contested game. We'd kind of expected this from a game played at Yankee Stadium at this point, where, like, you know, I think both teams really weren't particularly great at generating chances on a regular basis, because, I mean, it was a ping-pong soccer more or less being played all evening. A lot of 50-50 balls in midfield and a lot of weird bounces here and there that could almost immediately lead to breaks. You know, I think this is what we know about Yankee Stadium. You know, it's just bizarre things happen at the stadium, and unfortunately they happened again. You know, one thing that I noted, I think, was that you could see that there were some adjustments to our game plan to deal with their way that Dominic Toretto comes out to try and play against us. You know, like we saw from the last time we were up at Yankee Stadium, a lot of long balls being played in over the top, a lot of directness. And to kind of counter that, like, you kind of see our defensive formation for this game was a very flat 4-4-2.
Yeah.
Where you had two solid blocks of defenders just kind of laying it in a line to try and absorb basically everything they're trying to play over the top. You know, the defensive line was a bit deeper than it used to be, and the midfield dropped back really deep as well to create those two solid, like, lines. And, you know, I think for the most part it worked. You know, they didn't really have a lot of luck going forward in the first half, outside of one shot from Villa that hit the post, another that hit the side netting. I think for the most part, the defense dealt well with their threat, and, you know, we deservedly took the lead because we took that one chance that we created, like, better than they did. You know, I think that was certainly one thing to look forward to. And then on top of that, you know, when what's his name, Eloy Amagat, I'm just gonna call him Leroy Jenkins. When Leroy Jenkins got sent off for that two-footed tackle towards the end of the game, you know, that was really sort of like the high point of the game for us. You know, because at that point, I'm sure that we were thinking, they don't have anything for us. They don't really seem to be able to create anything. And, you know, like, I certainly thought at the stadium at the time anyway that one might have been enough to seal the game, like the way that we were playing and the way that they were playing. You know, it seemed like that tight game with just the finest of margins was what was going to separate those two teams. But as it turned out, you know, it wasn't quite the case.
Yeah, and I mean, in a way, it was the finest of margins. You know, that second goal never should have happened. You know, so that first half, I feel, was very, very good. People have to remember, you're still going up against a very, very good team. So anyone who thought we were just going to go in there, waltz in there, and look like, you know, this world-class team against some shitty team wasn't going to happen. There were, you know, NYCFC were going to have some good moments, which they did. And we had more good moments because I feel like we were, at that moment, for most of the first half, the better team. I feel very good about the changes and adjustments that Chris made, because I was very worried he would kind of end up going with the five in the back in this game to kind of deal with the shoe fucking box size of the field and kind of deal with, you know, the long balls and stuff. He didn't. He kind of went a little bit outside the box, and again, it kind of, you know, at least compared to how the team typically plays. I don't know when was the last time I've seen a flat 4-4-2 from this team. I don't know. I know they, on the attack, like you mentioned there, they kind of shifted to like a 4-4-2 diamond in transition, which we've seen them do before. So I appreciate that he was proactive with doing something that would allow the team to still play how they want to play, but put them in a position where they could absorb some of the things that City did. So those are positives. It still comes down to that field is an embarrassment to the sport. Everything about that field is fucking pathetic. The league should be ashamed that they allow this circus to continue to happen. I'm not blaming the draw on that. I'm not blaming any of that. But that field played a big part in what happened in that game yesterday. And a bigger part than it should have. Between it being so fucking small and just fundamentally changing how every team plays going into there in a massive way, and then having to deal with just the size and with dealing with the infield. Like, it's just, oh my God, it's...
Yeah, I think with how the second half transpired, I think we can both agree that it definitely feels like, again, we dropped 2 points on the road.
Yeah.
And, I want to kind of get this out the way. I want to state it in very clean, pure, straightforward English. Like, we shouldn't be happy at all with the way the team came out in that second half at all. And, I think, like, there's kind of, anytime that, okay, I guess for me, like, going down a man at Yankee Stadium isn't necessarily the most biggest advantage, because the size of the field, like you say, is kind of makes up for that man advantage, right? And that's kind of what we saw in that second half, with City just kind of withdrew a bit more, packed the midfield with a lot more bodies, and then subbed out Tajuri for Berget, so that they had an outlet for long balls from the back to give scraps to David Villa. And, I think Liam Petit on Red Bull News Network pointed this out, that's how they scored their goal, and you have to kind of unfortunately, you have to give Dominic Toretto like a credit for that. But, it was cynical and effective, but effective tactics that were working so long as they had 10 men on the field. That when they lost another man as a result of the Ofori tackle on BWP, getting a red card as a result of VAR, you could see how much more the game opened up once they went down in 9 instead of 10.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of when you started to see the space, the size of the field not really playing as much of a factor, because we were just so clearly then had 1 or 2 men who were always open in attack. We definitely had a very clear advantage numerically when it came to that, because once they lost Ofori, like, there weren't enough men in their midfield to cover all the space that we could have. There was always 1 free man open in attack, and I certainly thought it was just kind of very annoying at that point that we can capitalize on that additional space. I think that's what I'm kind of more pissed off about. It's not really taking advantage of the 10-man advantage, because for some odd reason this team doesn't really play well against 10 men, because when teams go down to 10 men, they tend to play a bit more defensively, and they don't really play into our press as much. That's sort of been our handicap of the years. But once they went down in 9 and all that space opened up, I think that's what I'm kind of a bit more annoyed about. Yeah. Is the last 13 minutes of the game as opposed to having the 10 men from 40.
Yeah, so for me, the game kind of gets broken down into 3 parts. You had the first part up into that first red card, where 11 against 11, I felt we dominated them. Again, City had their moments, but we just looked better than them. I felt very good up until that point. We looked better against their full 11 than we did against their 9, which is fucking insane. But it is what it is. The second part was when we went down. When they went down a man. For the first 5 or so minutes after that happened, we still looked good. Like, I was like, wow, we're actually gonna do better. I feel like, Armas has kind of changed tactics enough where we can take care of teams that bunker down. Second half starts, and I don't know what the fuck happened. They just looked like such a different team, like, not in a good way. Like, the way they were playing was not good. And for me, it was more than just City bunkering. They just became very relaxed, like, just kind of complacent. Not even relaxed. They just became complacent. Like, okay, we're up, 1-0. They're not, we're doing a good job at stopping their chances. I'm not gonna go and push the extra step like I was before, to take care of things. And that started hurting us. And it did. That's eventually when they scored. One thing, though, that I'll say is the third part of this game is when that second red came in. The difference, so typically when a team goes down a man, they get super defensive. They just totally bunker down. And that's why we have, and really any team, not just us, any team typically has a problem when you're a man with just a man up, because again, the other team's going to bunker down, and it's just hard to break, a 7-man back line. I don't care who the fuck you are. Things changed when he went down a second person, and even leading up to that, there were some changes. the biggest changes were they were no longer just flat out bunkering. They would bunker, but they always had like 2 guys playing further up the field. And because of how small that field is, as soon as they got possession in the box, they just a long ball, bypassing all of us, because now that we're up a man or 2 men, we're pushing way too far up, way too aggressive. Everyone is going up there. So now you have all this space where they're just, again, doing long balls to Villa and what's his name that that was around him. And now we're in a situation where they're on a dangerous counter because it's really just them and like long. We have so many guys playing far up in the attack that we get caught in a counter. And that kept on happening and happening and happening. And what bothered me the most about that final like 13 minutes was the team they seem to have lost that sense of confidence and like that level of just like relaxation that they've kind of had lately in certain moments against bunkering teams. Chicago bunkered at home against us. Vancouver kind of bunkered, kind of sat back and bunkered a little bit against us. DC sat back a little bit and bunkered against us, and we did fine. We were able to figure things out. For some reason, they just went on this total frantic mode where they just, I can't even describe it. They just looked like frantic is probably the only way I can describe it. They just didn't look composed. Gaku mentioned it himself in a post-game interview. All he had to do was just relax. Just be patient. Do what they've been doing. Slow it down just a little bit, but maybe, again, slow things down and create these plays like they've been doing just outside the box and make things happen.
Yeah.
They weren't doing that. They were just going right in every single time and look what happened. Nothing. We got nothing out of it.
Yeah, I have 2 theories as to why I think we had so much difficulty. I think again it goes back to what you said about the field, right? Like City leaving about 2 or 3 men up was on purpose because they know that if certain things don't bound a certain way on that field, someone could be in with a breakaway and they can score a goal right there. I think that's sort of like the first thing. And the reason why I think the field kind of factors in again is because if you look at a lot of these set plays that we do in terms of possession around the 18. There's not as much space to operate in because of how much the field condenses everyone, so there's not really a lot of space to play in. And secondly, on top of that, like particularly in the right-hand channel that we were attacking on, goes over the infield at Yankee Stadium. It's hard to play balls along the ground or really make any kind of passing that looks good in that channel because of all those weird bounces and all those,
especially with Lade there.
Yeah, with Lade there. And on top of, and that was sort of like kind of what goes into my second reason why we kind of struggled to create anything, is because Amir adds so much balance to this team that allows Royer to come in from the left side and add that extra man inside the box. Connor doesn't really quite have the same attacking verve that Amir has. Like Amir is our best on-ball player in the team, if you ask me, like in terms of his dribbling ability, in terms of his ability to get past his man, an ability to create space for himself to send in the cross, and his crossing on top of all that. He's probably, in my opinion, the best wide player that we have on this team currently. Now, we felt his loss last night. You can see that Royer had to come out a bit wide to try and stretch the play a little bit.
Yeah.
Brad had to drop deeper. Kaku had to drop deeper.
Yeah.
It was kind of at that point when Chris threw in Andreas Ivan and all those other guys to try and generate some more things from the right wing. That at the point where that happened and they were finally creating some kind of offense out wide, that everyone else was so gassed and so shook that they weren't really making the support runs to run onto those crosses that were being driven into the box. And, on the topic of Ivan, he's not the worst defender last night. I've been of the opinion that everyone last night played a decent game. But when you're going up against an MLS contender like NYCFC at their home where they're undefeated, sometimes 11 guys having decent games isn't going to be good enough on the day. Yeah. And that's basically what happened. We didn't,
if you have 7, 8 guys playing decent, playing well, and 1 or 2 guys playing very good, that might be enough to bring you over.
Yeah.
But when you just have a full set of 11 guys who who are just not bad, but just decent. Like I said, sometimes that's just not enough.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we know this about NYCFC. You know, like nowadays, games at Yankee Stadium aren't gimmies because they're not going to be coming out and playing us like Patrick Vieira
Playing at the back.
came out against us every single time. You don't see as much passing along the back anymore. You see the midfield being completely bypassed, which negates our biggest strength. You know, I think that's sort of like the thing that we have to look forward to going ahead when it comes to future clashes against City. Is how does Armas figure out a way to counter what Dominic Toretto has done to us? You know? And I think both times that Armas has come against him with you're playing this fucking Yankee Stadium chaos ball, you know, we've still taken them to 15 rounds every single time.
Yeah.
Is that the first time against them at Yankee Stadium? We got in our own way with that giveaway. The second time we went up against them at Yankee Stadium, like, you know, I mean, like, we could have definitely sealed the result, and we really should have, in my opinion. But, you know, once again, we got in our own way because this time we lost our composure as we got more desperate as the game went on. And in the end, it cost us 2 points.
That's all they needed. They really just needed some better composure around the box. They needed to just kind of just relax and be patient, and they couldn't do it.
Or just like play on instinct as well. Like when we had a golden chance to score right at the end of the game, but Royer passed up on the shot to pass it to BWP, who then tried to cut inside and take it first time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 2 golden chances that you kind of at least need to shoot on, because you had all day to pick out a corner from the edge of the 18 and you didn't take the shot. With the form that Danny Royer is in, like, I would have put my life savings on him at least getting a save out of Sean Johnson from that position, but he passed it up.
Yep.
And, you know, again, like, I'm going to harken back to Andreas Ivan again. You know, I mean, like, he was the only one that second half who was taking shots that he had. You know, he forced 2 saves out of Sean Johnson. He had some nice one-on-one moments where he beat his man. It's just the fact is that, okay, some of the crosses were a bit wayward, or some of the decisions that he made weren't fantastic, but he still seemed to be the most likely out of all the substitutes to make something happen. Wheel didn't have enough time to really leave an impact, and Etienne, I think, was just completely invisible when he came on, if you ask me.
Yeah, such a bad shot, too.
Yeah.
Look, Andreas, like, I'm not even kidding. Last night may very well have been the first time he's ever seen a baseball field in his entire life. He was then now asked to play professional soccer on that field. I mean, there was a moment where he slipped, and not long after that, you can visibly see he didn't feel comfortable being that out wide because he was basically running on this fucking infield of a baseball field. You know, look, losing Amir last night was tough. Amir, if you look, I tweeted, you know, the heat maps. You lost that entire attack on the right side. Lade cannot add. He just can't do what Amir does on the outside on that right. And like you said, it didn't give Royer the space to make things happen. Yankee Stadium is Yankee Stadium. It's still not good enough. I'm infuriated about the draw. It's not good enough, but again, an away point, playoffs, that's good enough.
Yeah, I think, again, you know, I take the result in a vacuum, but the context of it makes it worse. We'll be coming back with a bit more for what's ahead right after this.
Delivery by Kaku. Sent away by Johnson. One touch by Adams, out to Royer, inside and headed home! And it's Bradley Wright Phillips! 12 games, 12 goals for Wright Phillips against New York City FC. That's the opener for Red Bulls.
And now we're back, ladies and gentlemen, to preview the 2 games we have coming up. The next 2 games on the schedule. They are none other than, you know, it's a vaunted return to Red Bull Arena for us, and I think, you know, it's nice that after a kind of a difficult bunch of games away from home that we have 2 against opposition that I think we can most definitely get on track with beating. You know, I think we can definitely get back on track with some results coming up soon. The first, of course, would be DC United at home on Sunday on the 26th. You know, and this is a DC team that has been resurgent as a result of their homestand. Their opening up at Audi Field has really put DC United, I think, in contention for a playoff spot once again, because they've just been shooting up the standings as a result of their home form. You know, currently find themselves 8th in the East, but they are 6 points out of a playoff spot with 2 or 4 games in hand and everyone else in front of them. And in front of them are teams that are just trending in the right direction, like Montreal and New England. You know, I think it's definitely doable for DC United to get back in the playoff run. You know, it's especially considering how home heavy their schedule is going to be ahead. Notably, they are undefeated since we defeated them at Audi Field. But in that stretch of games, they played Colorado, Montreal, Orlando, Portland, and New England. Montreal being the only away game out of all of that, and there they got a draw. You know, I think it's kind of notable to say that the only team that kind of stands out from that selection of that sample for me is Portland, and that was them traveling in midweek to an away game.
Yeah.
So it's kind of notable. You know, like these weren't good teams that DC were really playing at Audi Field, and Orlando took them to like require like an insane play from Wayne Rooney to get back 3 points against them. And on the topic of Wayne Rooney, you know, like this is a DC United team that has been, for better or for worse, sparked by his entrance to the nation's capital because of how much better he's made Lucho Acosta right behind him. You know, like Acosta has been the star man for DC coming into this game, finding himself in torrid goal-scoring form as a result of the understanding between him and Rooney. And on top of that, DC have addressed a big weakness at goalkeeper by re-signing none other than Bill Hamid from Midtjylland. So welcome back, Bill. Fuck you, but welcome back anyway. Also bolstering recently is the new central midfield pairing of former U.S. youth team national Russell Canoes and new defensive midfielder Junior Moreno, who signed in the winter transfer window and has found himself in Benny Olsen's selections a bit more recently. Nothing much has really changed in terms of team composition otherwise. I think like you kind of know what to expect from DC United at this point.
Their form has changed considerably, with I think a little bit of an asterisk considering, you know, again, the teams they've played. They haven't really played anyone like really, really well. Yeah, they've played a couple of playoff teams, but all of them are regressing playoff teams, so I'm not sure how much weight you can give you can put in there. They're definitely more dangerous than they were before. I feel roster-wise, although they're not big changes, you know, strengthening that center mid position is definitely a positive for them. Rooney being a lot more integrated now than obviously he was in that little brief appearance against us. They're a team where no matter how shitty they are, every time they come to Red Bull Arena, you can expect a good game.
Yeah.
I mean, even last year when they were fucking terrible, you know,
it was 3-3, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they you know, they did well. 2016, they were a shit team. We remember that 2-0 that game where we went from winning up 2-0 and we blew the lead. That was our first blown lead at home, actually. So they're still a rival, and they know this. So every time they come to Red Bull Arena, they're going to go in there and they're going to play in a whole different level.
Yeah, they're going to want to play spoiler.
Yeah, and the way just the way every team tends to play us is always like the best version of themselves most of the time. So I'm not worried about the game. I am slightly concerned. This is a team that can play spoiler. This is a team where we can't go in there and be complacent. This is the kind of game where we have to go in there and we got to fuck shit up.
Yeah, I agree.
If we go in there with the mindset of we cannot give them any breathing room, we're going to go in there and give it our 110%, we can roll through them. It's all going to depend on rotation, because we're going to start seeing rotation this game.
Yeah.
Who is going to be in what position, what tactics they're going to do. I mean, we're not going to have our best 11 out there. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
So, which is something we have to keep in mind, because DC's probably going to have their best 11 out there. So, again, I think we can go in there and we should be able to definitively win, but there is just a little dark concern that because they're kind of on the upswing, and we are going to be dealing with a little bit of rotation, that, you know, there's a potential for a spoiler.
Yeah. I think for that reason, I think my prediction for the game, I think it's going to be a tight one. I think it's going to be a bit of a nail-biter. I still think we have enough in us, even with a bit of a rotated squad, to pull out you know, maybe a 2-1 win at
That's
home.
what I was
think
gonna
that's
say,
what I was
yeah.
gonna feel. I was definitely feeling 2-1.
I feel like we're gonna have 2 good decisive goals, but at some point they're gonna get some bullshit goal, fucking Rooney or some asshole, and it's gonna be kind of a nail biter for the rest of the game. But our back line is gonna hold its own.
Yeah. Now, moving ahead to the midweek matchup next week, we do welcome the Houston Dynamo for their at Red Bull Arena in what is going to be the makeup game from earlier in the year. I think they had to reschedule this game for some reason that I can't remember now. Oh, yeah, the CCL.
Yeah, Champions
Oh yeah,
League.
remember when we played CCL? That was such a long time ago, ladies and gentlemen. So, shout out to Tolstoy. The Houston coming to this game with a week off. You know, they don't play this weekend after their midweek clash against FC Dallas, which is going on as we are filming this episode, of course. So they will be imperatively well rested coming to this game. What's crazy for me is that this is a Dynamo team that has come into this weekend's clash winless in their last 7 MLS regular season games, where their last regular season win was a 3-0 win against Minnesota on July the 8th.
That's worse.
So it's been a month and a half since this Houston team has found itself in the win column, which has resulted in them, you know, I mean, they're in 10th place in the Western Conference coming into this game, which is kind of surprising considering the talent that this team has. You know, and, you know, I think when I had a look at some of the advanced statistics, you know, it kind of stood out to me because the actual performance of this Houston team does not match what the advanced metrics have them performing at all.
No.
Like, this is a team that has been drastically underperforming these expected metrics. And that's crazy to me. I mean, like, they are 5th or 6th in the league, I believe, in expected goal difference per game. But they find themselves in the bottom quadrant of the Western Conference. And that to me is crazy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, like, these are alarm bells for me, you know, because this is a team, despite their flagging performance, you know, in terms of the table, you know, like, the underlying metrics suggest that this is a good team that is underperforming. And especially with rest and coming against us while we're in the midst of 4 games, and I think our 4th game in what, like 9 or 10 days or something like that.
Something like that,
Like,
yeah.
it's tight, you know. I think we definitely shouldn't be underestimating this Dynamo team, like, at all. And one possible reason why they find themselves in this situation, you know, their disciplinary record is terrible. You know, they had that one game where they had 3 guys sent off, right?
Oh shit!
Which was
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
A lot of their losses have been the result of them just being unable to keep 11 men on the field. You know, I mean,
crazy-ass game.
as soon as you keep
That was fucking nuts.
So, the consensus for me is, like, coming away from what I researched, is that this is a very talented but very poorly disciplined Houston team. You know, it's we know about their talent in attack. You know, the Honduran internationals, Albert Elis and Romel Kyoto, you know, when they are on their game, they can take on anyone in this league. Elis especially is an incredible player, especially at 22 years old. You know, his speed and his dribbling ability on the wing makes him one of the most dangerous players in the league when he's on form. And, you know, like, he's actually, I believe he has the 3rd highest player expected goal total coming into this game. So this is, by some metrics, a top 3 MLS player that we are facing, despite being 10th in the Western Conference. You know, Houston definitely have enough in the attack that they can be asking questions of our defense. You know, Elis, Kyoto, I mentioned. Their leading goal scorer is Mauro Manotas, who does a really good job of lurking in the center of the field. And I think Tomas Martinez kind of plays as this sort of auxiliary number 10, who's kind of like a bit like a safety valve. Wilmer Cabrera has this team attacking down the flanks a lot because they're trying to take advantage of the speed that Elis and Kyoto have, and their ability to just kind of take on guys one-on-one is how they score a lot of their goals. But any team that tries to send their players down the wings, bombing down the wings as much as Houston, you know, they leave themselves really susceptible at the back because of how much guys they push forward as a result of the wingers stretching to play. And, you know, it showed itself again. You know, their Achilles heel is definitely the fact that they have a mix of rather inexperienced options and very aged veterans at fullback. You know, the minutes leaders at the position are 33-year-old Panamanian international Adolfo Machado and 36-year-old DeMarcus Beasley. So when they push up the field, there's a lot of space being left in behind them for our wingers to exploit, our wide players to exploit personally. And that's partially in part to the fact that they don't really have the speed to recover from pushing up that high up the field, you know. And it's going to be, well, they are really good on the counter. They're good. Their ability to counter also leaves them crazily enough prone to being countered themselves. And they've shown, apparently, according to Who Scored, like they have a lot of. They struggle against teams that can pass the ball through the midfield at pace, you know. So I think if we see Riza and Kaku in the team in this game, you know, like these are going to be the two guys who are probably going to be playing a huge part if we want to get a result against Houston. So definitely some things to look out for when the Dynamo come to town next week.
Yeah, look, they're an extremely strong attacking team. What their poor discipline, I think, is something. I think there's a lot of little intangibles or little things that kind of build to give me quite a bit of confidence that they're gonna. It's not just gonna be us that I feel we're just gonna outperform them. It's also gonna be Houston shooting themselves in the foot. You think about a team that's poorly disciplined. Teams that are poorly disciplined don't do well against us because this team, the way they press you, it's fucking frustrating. And if you don't have that discipline, you know, 40, 50, 60 minutes in of always giving up the ball from being pressed and always getting your balls intercepted, that's going to frustrate you. So because this team is so good in transition and because they're so poor at dealing with strong countering teams, I can totally see them losing their shit again and creating a lot of instances of fouls and potentially, who knows, maybe they end up, you know, down a man or 2 or 3 this game. Personally, I hope they don't go down a man. I don't want to see us up a man ever for any reason whatsoever. It's made worse, like we said before, because of Yankee Stadium. But even in a proper sized soccer field, that's just not how we play. We play better when against a full squad. Yeah. So I'm okay with, hey, if they want to give up fouls around the box, okay, maybe we get to see some golazos from Andreas. Who knows? Yeah. But I don't want this to be a game where they end up going down multiple men. Not twice in a week. I don't need this shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like all their strengths we can handle pretty well. We've played against other teams that are really good on a counter, and we've held them pretty well. I feel very confident in our back line. We get Amir back. He'll, I'm assuming, start against DC. Will be somewhat of a quick turnaround on Wednesday, but he's had a week off, so he should be well rested. Yeah. I'm sure there's gonna be some kind of center back rotation this weekend. And Parker or Long, so hopefully we get one of them back for Houston. So I don't know. I feel like as dangerous as they are on the counter, we should be able to contain them. We're probably going to have some dicey moments, but I think we can contain them. It's their defensive flaws. It's how exposed they leave themselves in the midfield because of how wide they play from pushing all their fullbacks forward, from how overly aggressive they are, from how old that team is, where they physically can't track back fast enough. If we put a lineup of some solid speed, they're going to have some problems. So I feel more confident about this game against Houston than I do against DC.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. You know, like even looking at the event stats for me and revealing how good Houston can be. You know, I think that if we put up the right lineup against them to properly expose their flaws, I think we can come away with like maybe even a 3-1 win, which I think wouldn't be beyond this team's ability. You know, if it is a heavily rotated lineup, you know, I think we have really good top-down integration of how everyone else in the depth chart kind of understands how we want to play. That even if we kind of do see maybe like a B+ team against Houston, I still think that's good enough for 3 goals at home, especially against a team that's kind of struggling to keep teams off the board and be disciplined. You know,
look, when our team is pushing forward, we don't know who's going to be playing on the outside, but you know, depending on who we have out there, if we're able to just ram it down the middle, the way the way this team does does against teams like this who are just too old and slow to really kind of control the game outside, where you can kind of just maybe even give them a little breathing room on the outside to dominate the middle. I just don't see them being good enough to be able to really handle our aggressive play in the middle, or even if we decide to play wide with Taxi or Amir, whoever's on the outside, pushing forward against fucking Beasley. Like, they're not going to be able to handle the young, athletic, quick, fast, and good on-the-ball players that we have. And if you shift that down into the middle, even with a B+ side, we should absolutely be able to walk away with a 3-4 goal game. I really do. I really do.
All right. Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of does it here for us this evening on the MetroFanTV Weekly Rundown. We're in the thick of it, folks. But, as we always say, this team will keep on pushing. And, nothing's really shaken my confidence in this team. I really do see that this is a bit of a temporary blip, and we're going to get through it. At the end of the day, this is a really, really good team, and it's still absolutely, in my opinion, I expect 6 points from these next 2 fixtures. But until then, MetroFanTV will be seeing you at Sunday and Wednesday for the games against the Scum and the game against Houston. But for now, until then, peace.
Ronald Zubar comes back from suspension on defense. Kleshton and Stam continue to be attacking midfielders, but Gonzalo Verón in for Mike Grella, and he moves up top of 4-2-2-2. 3-3, 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call it. They're missing 3 starters: Tyler Derrick, the goalkeeper, Giles Barnes, the captain, and Christian Maidana, the playmaker. Sam looking for the run of Verón. 2 in the box. Kleshton. There's the breakthrough for the Red Bulls. 2016, off and running for New York.
Just about to say the one player whose name we haven't called a lot is Verón, and there he is. What a great little cutback. He created prior to the injuries as a substitute, but he's doing a good job centrally.
He finds Will Bruin. Will Bruin with a terrific finish past Luis Robles. And Houston conjures up the perfect response.
And a late lunge by Kamar Lawrence, but the central defenders caught upfield.
Houston growing in confidence at the moment. Ani Baba's delivery not dealt with. Bruin pounces again. Another mistake at the back, and it goes from bad to worse for the New York Red Bulls.
It is the ball played out wide, plenty of time to whip it in, and then a swing and a miss by
Sam's delivery falls to Felipe. Drives it low. Deflected in by Grella. What a crazy goal, and the South Ward is fired up.
The hungriest guy to the ball. He just wouldn't quit on it. And Horst.
Beasley in out wide. Garcia gets the ball back. Still Boniek. Alex Lima's shot finds the bottom right corner, and Houston comes right back. The Red Bulls just can't stay in front this season.
And right there, everybody late to the ball. That's just a rip. No chance for...
Good ball by Kleshton to find Felipe. To the right foot. What a finish! Felipe curls it. And the Red Bulls right back in it.
Their own end. You can't hit a ball better than that. Felipe puts it on the right foot. Rips the instep drive.
Felipe and Kleshton both preparing. It is Felipe. It is spectacular to the top corner. 4-3 New York.
Besides this man for taking the yellow card, I take it all back.
David Rocha to deliver. Loose, blocked inside the 6. Houston now asking for a handball, none coming. Shot from distance, whistles wide. Cleared away, and the New York Red Bulls come all the way back for an emotional 4-3 win, their first of the season, on 2 late goals from Felipe.